Hello and welcome, I'm King Gowdy from Sax Comprehensive, and in this video we'll discuss some ideas on how to use the pentatonic scale when improvising. Now if you're a beginner and you're just starting out learning how to improvise, then the pentatonic scale is a great scale to use. It's good for two reasons. Number one, it only has 5 notes, so fewer notes from which to choose from to create your melody. And number two, all of the notes within the pentatonic scale will sound great when played over popular chord progressions. So you don't really need to worry about whether playing a particular note is going to create some tension or dissonance. And you don't need a great knowledge of music theory guiding you to determine what note you should play or what to avoid, because all of the notes within the pentatonic scale will sound great over these popular chord progressions. So let's get started with this video. There are two main types of pentatonic scales, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic, and both these scales are easy to form. To create the major pentatonic scale, you simply take the major scale and remove the 4th and 7th note, creating a 5-note scale, the pentatonic scale. The reason why these notes are removed is because when playing the notes of a major scale in random order, it is these two notes that are likely to create the most dissonance or tension. If you look at a major scale, it follows a pattern of intervals: tone, tone, half tone, 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 half tone. By removing the 4th and 7th notes, we remove the possibility of playing notes a half tone apart or 6 half tones apart. That is, we remove the possibility of playing intervals of a minor second or tritone, and therefore remove the possibility of creating dissonance. So to recap, the way to create the major pentatonic scale is to simply start with the major scale of the same name and remove the 4th and 7th note of that scale. If you are good at playing by ear, then you would recognize the scale as the first notes of the song My Girl, and as such you should be able to work out the notes of all of the major pentatonic scales. To create the minor pentatonic scale, I will show you two ways to do that. The first way, which is the easiest, is to play the major pentatonic scale starting on the 6th note of the major scale. So for example, the 6th note of the C major scale is A, and if we play the C major pentatonic scale starting on A, we create the A minor pentatonic scale. Just as each major scale has its relative minor scale, which has the same notes and key signature, so does each major pentatonic scale has its relative minor pentatonic scale. Even though this is the easiest way to create the minor pentatonic scale, the problem with it is that if you want to create a specific minor pentatonic scale, you would have to know what major scale has its 6th note as the same as the scale that you want to produce. So for example, if I wanted to create the A minor pentatonic scale, I would first need to know that A is the 6th note of the C major scale. And then I could use the C major scale to create the C major pentatonic scale and play it on its 6th note A. This shouldn't be a problem if you know all of the major scales and their relative minor scales. The other way to create the minor pentatonic scale is to start with the major scale of the same name. So if you wanted to create the A minor pentatonic scale, then you start with the A major scale, then remove the 2nd and 6th note, and then flatten the 3rd and 7th note. This is the same as starting with the natural minor scale and removing the 2nd and 6th note. Because the minor pentatonic scale has the same notes as its relative major pentatonic scale, this means that the intervals between the notes will be the same. That is, the possibility of playing a minor second or a tritone is absent from this scale also, and as such the minor pentatonic scale will sound good when improvising. If you're playing jazz or blues, you can convert the minor pentatonic scale into the blues scale by adding a flattened 5th. Here are all the major pentatonic scales once again created from the major scale by removing the 4th and 7th note of the major scale, and all of the minor pentatonic scales created from the natural minor scale by removing the 2nd and 6th note of the natural minor scale, or you can create it by using the methods discussed previously. So now that we know how to create the major and minor pentatonic scales, as well as the blues scale, we can turn our attention to how to use these scales over a chord progression. There are several ways to use the pentatonic scale depending on what sound you are trying to achieve. The most common progression in jazz and pop is the 2-5-1 progression. So let's say that we have a 2-5-1 progression in the key of C for simplicity. The chord tones would be for the D minor 7, D, F, A, C, for the G7, G, B, D, F, and for the C major 7, C, E, G, B. At its basic level, we could play the notes of the C major pentatonic scale over this entire 2-5-1 progression, since it's in the key of C and we are using the C major pentatonic scale. We will only use one scale to improvise over these 3 chords. At a more advanced level, we could choose between several different pentatonic scales to use over each individual chord. Usually in jazz, we do not restrict ourselves to the basic chords, that is the root, the third, the fifth and the seventh notes only. But we also add alterations and/or extensions to the chord to give a more interesting sound. As you can see, the dominant chord can be altered the most. So by choosing an appropriate pentatonic scale, we can create a more interesting sound by bringing out the extensions of the chord. This will make more sense as we look at some examples. Here we have the D minor 7 chord. If we start on the root of that chord and go down a tone, we get to the C note. So we can play over this chord with the C major pentatonic scale. It has no third chord tone, but it has the 9th and the 11th extensions. We could play over the D minor 7 chord with the minor pentatonic scale of the root of that chord. So in this case, we could use the D minor pentatonic scale. It has all the chord tones and the 11th extension. We could go up a minor third from the root and play the F major pentatonic scale, which has the same notes as the D minor pentatonic. We could go up a perfect fourth from the root and play the G major pentatonic. It has no third or seventh chord tone, but it has the 9th, the 11th and the 13th extensions. Each of these scales as shown will either have more of the chord tones or will bring out some of the extensions, giving a different sound. For the G7 chord, we could use the C major pentatonic scale. We could also use the G7 pentatonic scale, also called the dominant pentatonic scale. Here we take the G major pentatonic scale, but we raise the 5th note of the pentatonic scale so that it becomes the same as the 7th chord tone. That way, the G7 pentatonic scale has all of the chord tones of the G7 chord, especially the important 7th note. We could also play the G minor pentatonic scale over the G7 chord to give a more bluesy feel, since it has a flattened third in it. For the C major 7th chord, again we could use the C major pentatonic scale. We could use the G major pentatonic scale, which will bring out the 9th, and the D major pentatonic scale, which will bring out the sharp 11. So these scales will work especially well over chords with similar extensions. Just as you can play the notes of the C major pentatonic scale over all of the chords of the 2-5-1 progression in the key of C major, so you can use the C minor pentatonic scale over all of the chords in the 2-5-1 progression in the key of C minor. In order to play these different pentatonic scales well, we need to be familiar with them, preferably in all keys. The best way to do that is to play pentatonic exercises or motifs, which can later be incorporated in our playing, or to learn common pentatonic licks. Here are a few pentatonic exercises to get you started. You can find lots of similar exercises online or make up your own exercises. The first exercise goes up and down the scale in groups of 4. The second uses thirds, and the last uses triplets. Once you have learnt these and similar exercises, you can play them using the different pentatonic scales discussed previously over the 2-5-1 progression. Since all of this will take a long time to master, especially to become fluent in the many exercises, alternatively, you could just start with one note of the pentatonic scale and develop a good rhythm. Then you could add another note, etc., and build up until you incorporate all of the 5 notes of the pentatonic scale. You could then add triplets and emphasize certain notes, and before you know it, you'll be creating great melodies. Let's try and put this into practice. The pattern that we will use goes like this. Start on any note of the pentatonic scale of your choice. Play that note, then skip a note going down. Play that note and the next note below it. Then play the note that you skipped. Then repeat this pattern starting on the next note down from where you stopped. In this example, it will be E, since we stopped on G. Continue this pattern down the scale. Here's an example in the context of the 2-5-1 progression. It starts with the notes going up the D minor pentatonic scale because I don't want to start too high. Then I use the patterns to take me down low. When I change scales, I move to the closest note so there is a smooth transition. The more patterns and pentatonic scales that we learn, the more creative we can be until all this becomes automatic. To end this video, I will leave you with a backing track so you can play that backing track and practice some of the ideas that we've discussed here. Let me say thank you for watching this video, and if you're not yet a subscriber, then consider subscribing to this channel and click that notification bell. I will upload some more videos on improvisation shortly, and I shall see you soon in the next video. Start practicing. Bye bye.